Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. It is Mythic Championship VI Weekend. The Oko show is going on as we speak. But the big question for us today is, what's going on with the secondary market? Which cards are going up in value and why? Which cards are going down in value and why? We're going to talk about everything that's happening in this video today as we do every week. Just a quick reminder though, before we get into it, if you go over to FlipsideGaming.com, use that Heroes promo code, you'll save 10% off any order over $10. And you'll also support the channel at the same time, which is always appreciated. But without any further ado, let's get into today's information. All right, let's begin as we always do with Standard and the top 7 Standard legal cards that have lost value this week. One note though, before we get into Standard, typically in these big event weekends, like a Mythic Championship weekend where they're focused on Standard, you would be seeing a lot of price jumps and such. Things are relatively calm. The jumps you're going to see in a little bit are really more tied into Pioneer than anything. The main reason for that is Standard is just not a desirable format right now to jump into. High speculation that November 18th, Oko is going to get banned, perhaps because 69% of the decks of the Mythic Championship are running it. And because of that, a lot of people are a little bit apprehensive about trying to buy into a deck when the meta could change very quickly. So let's see what's happening here. Number 7 is Spawn of Mayhem, down 95 cents to $7.98. At the beginning of the Standard season, there were really high hopes for this card, as a lot of people just thought maybe some of these Rakdos aggro decks or even mono black aggro decks could do pretty well. Unfortunately, that never really happened. First, we had the whole Field of the Dead thing, then they banned Field of the Dead, then Oko just became super oppressive, and the decks running this particular card just never really got out of the gate. They are still kicking around, and you still see them, and who knows, maybe if Oko does get banned on November 18th, maybe this card will get a chance to do something. But as of right now, it's going to continue to lose value. If it can't really get something going after a banning on November 18th, if that does occur, then this card's going to lose a lot of value quickly. Number 6 is Embercleave, down $1.17 to $10.21. Now, this is a card that actually got very hot a few weeks ago because it was in the winning Gruul aggro deck at Mythic Championship number 5. The card looked great on camera that weekend, brought a lot of attention to it. Unfortunately, it didn't really do as much competitively since then. However, it is still kicking around in some aggro decks, including that Gruul aggro deck, which is still decent at times. And it is seeing a tad bit of Pioneer play too, sometimes in Izzet and Sol, as well as some of the aggro builds there. So it does lose value. I do think this will lose some more value though. Again, assuming Oko does get banned on the 18th, maybe the prospects for this card will change again, but right now it is a little soft. Remember though, it has been seeing Commander play, especially with Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashval. Number 5 is Hydroid Crisis, down $1.30 to $29.39. This is seeing a fair amount of Standard play, obviously, right now in those Sultai, Simic, and Bant Food decks. Seeing less Pioneer play this week than maybe the week before, but I think it still has some potential there. Now, it is soft, not necessarily because people think that if Oko does get banned, that the current versions of these ramp decks are going to go away. I do think if we lose Oko, a Bant ramp deck or a Simic ramp deck could still be very good and will still run this card. But look at that price tag right now. $30 is very high for this card, and I do think regardless of how much Standard play it sees, it is going to lose some value. Number 4 is Absorb. This is the original one from Invasion. It goes down $1.33 to $6.85. Now, this had kind of a weird spike last week just because it was kind of drying up in the marketplace a little bit. So this is just normalization, nothing too odd here. It is seeing a little Standard play in some of the control builds, also seeing a little Pioneer play in control builds too. Number 3, Gideon's Company, goes down $1.41 to $2.95. You can find 3 copies of this in the War of the Spark, Gideon the Oathsworn Planeswalker deck. Now, this card has been hot recently because it's actually a decent commander and casual card. If you want to play with a life gain deck, or maybe you have a lot of Gideons in your deck, this is definitely something you might be interested in. Because of that, it has had a relatively high price tag ever since it came out, but it is starting to normalize down a little bit now. Number 2 is Questing Beast, down $3.67 to $27.56. Another very good card for a lot of decks right now in Standard. Again, many times you're going to find this in those food decks, all different varieties of them. Also, the adventure decks will use this, as well as Gruul aggro. It is seeing some Pioneer play, and even a little Vintage play, but again, it does have a very high price tag, especially considering this is from the current Standard set, so a lot of packs are still being opened. Number 1, was there any doubt? Oko Thief of Crowns goes down $8.19 to $39.57 this week. So this is all based around the speculation that it could disappear out of the standard format. Now here's the big question though. How low does the price go if they do ban it in standard on November 18th? Well, it depends if it gets banned anywhere else. Now, it did get banned in Brawl this week, which could have also contributed to this week's value loss. Could a Commander ban be coming? Could a Vintage restriction be coming? Because this card is actually doing a lot in Vintage. Could a Pioneer ban happen? Could a Modern ban happen? These are questions that we don't know the answers to right now. My guess would be, I think eventually this does get banned in Pioneer, maybe not right away, but as they continue to ban cards slowly like they did this week with those first 3, eventually Oko is going to become more powerful, and when that happens, I think it will get banned. Vintage, Legacy, even Modern, the meta might be able to adjust around this. I would just give it a little time. So we'll have to see what happens. Ultimately, yes, this will continue to lose value. The question is, long term, how much value will it lose? Okay, let's move on to the top 5 standard legal cards that have gained value this week. Number 5 is Stone Coil Serpent, up $1.04 to $4. This is seeing a little standard play right now, but this is all about Pioneer. Pioneer Hardened Scales decks are running this, and actually a few more decks in the format. Also, Vintage players are using this in Ravager shops and sometimes stacks. Number 4 is Brazen Borrower, up $1.05 to $14.92. Okay, with the speculation again around Oko, this card is getting hotter because a lot of the decks that don't run Oko, or maybe just sometimes run that out of the sideboard, do happen to run this card. I'm thinking Thiemo Reclamation, Azorius Control, Flash builds, many times they'll run this. Also, sure, Simic Food does run this at times, and maybe that could still be a deck without Oko too. With that being said, though, there are other players interested in this card aside from standard players. In Pioneer, this is showing up in Izzet Phoenix, which looks like a very powerful build right now. Modern, Izzet Control, Izzet Delver, and Merfolk will all run this. Legacy, Grixis, Dreadhorde, Delver, and more there. So this is definitely a card to watch long term. Number 3 is Arclight Phoenix. This goes up $1.07 to $19.50. So this is a card that does have some extra copies out there because this was in the Arcane Tempo Challenger deck, so remember that. But it doesn't seem to matter too much. It's still about a $20 card at this point. It is seeing a little standard play. Actually, it has seen a little more in the recent weeks. Izzet Phoenix decks and also the Drowned Secrets variant of those decks. They are running it, but they're not out there in big numbers right now. Phoenix decks, though, and Pioneer, like I said just a moment ago, are looking really strong. Now, that does put them in a position where they could get hit with a banning. We'll have to kind of see what happens there. But right now, this card is very hot. Number 2, Vivian Arcbow Ranger, up $1.46 to $10. Another card that might see more play if we do lose Oko in the standard format. Currently, you'll find this in Golgari Adventures and some other decks there. Pioneer, sometimes you'll find this in Hardened Scales, so it is starting to at least leave a little bit of a footprint there too. Number 1, Vraska Golgari Queen, goes up $2.31 to $19.99. This card got super hot recently because it is a good foil to Oko. This is the reason those Sultai decks became the more prominent decks out there doing well in the tournaments. Sultai Food can not only run Okos, but they can run this as well as Noxious Grasp right in the main. So the idea is you get your Okos out and then you try to disrupt your opponent's Okos because most of the time you're playing some kind of Oko mirror match. Now, if Oko does get banned, obviously in standard, this card will most likely lose value pretty quickly. However, I don't think it's going to lose all its value because it is seeing play in Pioneer and Sultai Control, Modern and Jund, Golgari Yawgmoth Cord, 4-color Snow Control, The Rock. So remember, there are other formats that have Okos. And as long as Oko exists, I think this card might be around too, even if it is out of sideboards. On to the top 5 Pioneer legal cards that have lost value this week. A couple things to remember. First off, they are doing a banned list update every Monday, at least for a while. So as cards start to get too powerful, they will quickly ban them, which is making people a little bit nervous about buying into decks right now. Also, there was a lot of hype initially with Pioneer a couple weeks ago. Some of the cards that maybe didn't perform as well as people anticipated are already on the way down. Monday, we saw 3 bannings. Those included Oath of Nissa, Felidar Guardian, and Leyline of Abundance, which means you do have other cards that were played alongside those cards going down in value now too. Number 5, though, is Monastery Mentor. It goes down $1.22 to $31.49. It is seeing a little bit of play right now in Pioneer and Esper Control. We'll have to kind of see if that catches on more. In Modern, this is in various control builds. Legacy, it's he's playing Jeskai Mentor and more there. Even Vintage, you'll find this card sometimes. So it is seeing a fair amount of play, but again, it recently has been a hot card. It was going up in value pretty aggressively, so it's not too surprising to see a little normalization here. If it does start to take off and do better in Pioneer, though, I would expect it to quickly recover. Number 4 is Deathrite Shaman. Eternal Masters goes down $1.05 to $8.51 this week. Guilds of Ravnica Golgari Guild Kit goes down $1.88 to $9. So we know this is a powerful card that's been banned in Modern, it's been banned in Legacy. But without fetch lands, it's starting to feel like this card isn't necessarily as powerful as a lot of people anticipated it would be in Pioneer. Originally, I think people were worried that it could get banned. Now I think people are just trying to figure out what to do with it. It is showing up in some builds though, like the Soulflare builds typically, and some others out there in Pioneer, but it's not an overwhelmingly powerful or dominant card, at least not yet. It also does continue to see vintage play. Number 3, Liliana the Last Hope goes down $1.98 to $56.99. This is one of the cards that spiked most aggressively when we found out about Pioneer being a format. And yeah, I think it's still going to be a decent Pioneer card. It is showing up in various control builds there, and it looks pretty good. But I do expect more retraction because that spike was very aggressive. This also sees a fair amount of Modern play in things like Mardu Death Shadow, 4-color Snow Control, Sultai Snowwalkers, The Rock, and more. Can see Legacy and Vintage play too. Number 2 is Sihili Rai, going down $2.20 to $10.53 this week. Of course, this is because of the Pioneer banning of Felidar Guardian. The copycat decks were looking really good. Not so much without Felidar Guardian and even Oath of Nissa. This does see a little Modern play in copycat decks, but that deck isn't super dominant right now. Number 1 is Mox Amber, down $2.20 to $24.01. Now this has seen a little Pioneer play, but really the movement recently has been because of Modern. A lot of people anticipated that Urza Outcome was going to be the Urza deck. And typically those decks run 3 or 4 copies of this card. What actually happened though is Oko started to make its way into Urza decks, and the Simic Urza Thopter Sword deck was the one that became more popular. That one usually runs 1 or no copies of this. Because of that, this card has softened up a little bit and could lose some more value before it does stabilize. But I will say this, Urza Outcome is starting to look a little more powerful. It is rebounding a little bit. This also sees playing Kethis combo in Modern, and that deck does have potential. This has seen more Commander play with Emery Lurker of the Loch. And there is potential for this in Pioneer too, so I would just continue to watch this card. If you can get it cheap, I would get some copies, have a playset on hand, because I think in the future there's going to be things to do with this pretty regularly. Okay, let's move on to the top 10 Pioneer legal cards that have gained value this week. Obviously, people are still trying to figure out the format. New cards are going up in value here or there. Other cards that are proving themselves to be strong are continuing to increase, so let's see what's happening. Number 10 is Smuggler's Copter. It goes up $2.32 to $9.41. This is seeing a lot of play. Mono Red Aggro, Simic Stompy, Banned Spirits, and much more. This also sees a little Modern and Legacy play too. Number 9 is Mutavault. This is the one from Magic 2014. It goes up $2.58 to $12.50. And you're going to find this one in Mono Black Vampires, as well as Hardened Scales and more in the Pioneer format. In Modern, this he's playing Azorius Spirits, Merfolk, Fairies. Legacy Merfolk will use this too. A lot of casual decks are interested in this card as well. Number 8, Hangerback Walker. This goes up $2.99 to $15.54. This sees playing Hardened Scales, Seasons Past, and other decks in the Pioneer format. In Modern, you'll find this in Eldrazi Tron, Hardened Scales, among other places there too. This also has seen more Commander play with Emery in the format. Number 7 is Spire Bluff Canal, up $3.11 to $11.34. Now, early on, I said that you're going to want to get these Kaladesh dual lands for the Pioneer format. This one has been seeing the most play recently because of Izzet Phoenix more than anything. That is the deck that's really taken off this week. This is also in Izzet and Soul and other decks in the format. Modern, this will show up sometimes in like Gift Storm and more. Number 6, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, up $3.33 to $50. Now, this is another card that climbed very quickly when the Pioneer format was announced. This one not retracting yet, though. Still going up in value. Looks good in various control builds in the format. Also sees a little Modern play, typically in Grixis Death Shadow. Number 5, Kalidas, Trader of Geth, goes up $3.62 to $20. This is a very solid Pioneer card, showing up in control builds. Mono Black Vampires, Mono Black Aggro, and more. Modern, too, you're going to find this in big decks like Grixis Control, 4-color Snow Control, and The Rock. Number 4 is Thoughtseize. 2 copies to talk about this week. Lorwyn going up $2.93 to $37.92. Iconic Masters up $4.36 to $32.14. The Theros copy still going up a little bit too, but not as drastically as these. That particular copy spiked a couple weeks ago. This is just a big Pioneer card, but I will say it has seen less play in the last week or so compared to what we were seeing early on. But this is still going to be a Pioneer staple, I have no doubt. This is already a Modern staple, as you know. Death Shadow builds will run it. There's a Thopter Sword builds. There's an Outcome, Dredge. It's all over that format. Sees play in Legacy too. Number 3 is a pretty big Pioneer card this week. Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, going up 464 to 1037. Other than the Izzet Phoenix deck, I would say the other deck this week that had a lot of momentum was Hardened Scales. This is in that build, as well as in Selesnya Tokens. This can also see play in Legacy Infect decks too. Number 2 is Sphinx's Revelation. Modern Masters 2017 is going up 335 to 1025 this week. And Ravnica Allegiance Azorius Guild Kit going up 491 to 810. Now, this card didn't do a whole lot after it left Standard. Sometimes for a little while you would see someone try to use it in Modern, not so much anymore. But in Pioneer, this definitely is finding homes in various control builds, as well as the Bant Field of the Dead deck. Because remember, you can play Field of the Dead in Pioneer. Actually, Field of the Dead is going up a little bit this week, even though it was banned in Standard. It did not make the Pioneer list, but we will talk about it later. Number 1 is Thing in the Ice, up $6.90 to $19.24. Another card that you're going to find in the Izzet Phoenix builds, which again did great this week. Nexus Reclamation is also running this card, and there's other places too in the Pioneer format. In Modern, you're going to find this in Izzet Control, Izzet Delver, and more decks there too. Okay, on to the top 5 Modern legal cards that have lost value this week. So in this section, we're talking about cards that are legal in Modern, but not legal in Pioneer or Standard. Modern kind of had a down week, and that's partially because Star City Games made the announcement that they are going to begin phasing Modern out of their big events and replacing it with Pioneer. And they did this a number of years ago with Legacy. Modern moved in and pushed Legacy out for the most part. Now with that announcement, you have people starting to question whether they want to buy into Modern decks at this point or buy Modern cards. I do think people are still open to building Modern decks and buying cards as long as the cards are also good in Pioneer. So I do think some of the cards we just saw we're moving, at least in part, because of Modern. But you're going to notice in this section that Modern is taking some losses, but not really seeing a lot of gains. Number 5, Ren and 6, down $3.99 to $80. Now, this card is seeing a fair amount of Modern play. Jund Death Shadow, Rainbow Niv Mizzet, but it also sees a good amount of Legacy play. Temur Delver, 4-color Control, 4-color Leovold, lands, and more. Some Vintage play too. It has a very high price tag though, so I do think this will lose some more value before it does stabilize. Number 4, Cavern of Souls. This is the one for Modern Masters 2017. It goes down $4.05 to $65. This is played in Amulet Titan, which is a very popular deck right now in Modern. Also in Eldrazi builds, Humans, Goblins, Spirits builds, Merfolk. Sees Legacy play too in Eldrazi decks, and it's a great casual card for Tribal. But at least this copy of the card a little bit soft this week. Number 3, Jace the Mind Sculptor. This is the one for Masters 25. It goes down $4.77 to $125. Maybe not too surprising to see this. Jaces are still trying to find their price point, going up, going down. They seem to be landing somewhere around the $130 mark, though. Next week, this will probably recover a little bit. But it does see play in Modern Control as well as Stoneblade builds, Legacy, Vintage, Commander, Oathbreaker. Many players will always be interested in this card. Number 2, Chalice of the Void from Mirrodin, down $6.48 to $58.29. This card is seeing a little bit less percentage play compared to a few months back. But it's still seeing a lot of play in Modern, Tron builds, Goblins, Merfolk, Legacy, Eldrazi Stompy, Death and Taxes, Mono Red Prison. Sees Vintage play as well, even though it is restricted there. With that being said, though, I do think this will lose more value before it does stabilize. Number 1 is Mox Opal, down $8.19 to $100. So this card was losing some steam going into the last couple weekends. However, I kind of thought that might have been due to the mystery packs because this was such an expensive card. If they started showing up in those mystery boosters at conventions, then okay, more copies were going to be getting out there. Now, people have been opening those mystery packs for a couple days now at Richmond, and there's actually a lot of cards that could be found in those packs. I think they said between 1,000 and 2,000 different cards. We kind of reacted to the cards during the stream the other day, and like most players, we focused on the playtest cards more than the reprints. Many of the reprints were bulk, but there are some good ones too. So far, I haven't seen any Mox Opals opened, but it could be out there, maybe, I don't know, and if it is, in what quantity. I have seen other reprinted cards like Mana Crypt, that's definitely floating around out there, Kiki Jiki, Bloom Tender, Teferi's Protection, so there are a lot of solid cards getting more copies pushed into the environment. We just don't know in what quantities at this point. Wizards is going to put an article out on Monday, and I think they're going to give us a whole list of the cards that you could find in these packs. That might clarify things at least a little bit. So Time will tell. That could be part of the reason, too. People are a little soft right now on expensive cards like this one. But this does see a ton of play, and at some point, if you're building a deck, you might need it. This is in 4-color Urzethopter Sword, the Simic Urzethopter Sword deck, Urza Outcome, Affinity, Hardened Scales, and a whole lot more in Modern. Legacy, Ad Nauseam Tendrils, and more there. Vintage, Paradoxical Outcome. Definitely a card that I think could rebound relatively quickly. Time for the top 6 Modern legal cards that have gained value this week, and like I said, you're going to see some odd cards here. Not a whole lot of things going up in value. Number 6 is Maelstrom Nexus, going up 62 cents to 16.87. Yeah, that's right. I had to go all the way down to 62 cents to find this card. I did want to point it out, though, because you know what? This is a cool casual card, especially if you want to play something like Commander Slivers. Yeah, you know what? Maybe not a bad pickup if you can find one of these between 10 and 15 bucks. Number 5, Incendiary Command. This is the one from Lorwyn. It goes up 64 cents to $1.69. You probably guessed by now, we're going to be looking at more Commander playable cards and Modern playable cards in this section today, just because, like I said, Modern is so slow. And this particular one is seeing play now in Torbran Thane of Red Fel builds in Commander. Number 4, Avacyn Angel of Hope, the original one from Avacyn Restored, going up 67 cents to 31.23. Great Commander card for Angel builds or Flyers builds. This one has always been popular in that format. Number 3 is Kozilek Butcher of Truth. This is the one from Ultimate Masters, going up 75 cents to $30.75. Not a huge increase here, but this does see a little legacy play in 12 post, and it's a great Commander card for those colorless Eldrazi big mana builds. Number 2 is Polluted Bonds, up 94 cents to $23.74. This card continues to be hot. Ever since Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth came out, a lot of people have been trying to pick this up to include in those builds, but just generally, this is a fine Commander card. Aside from that, though, it's also a Shadowmoor rare, so I'll use my one per video here. Cards from that time period were printed a little bit less compared to other Modern era Magic cards, so when a little attention hits them sometimes, they do tend to get a little spiky. This card has been hot partially because it's a little harder to find in good condition now. And number 1 is Birds of Paradise from Revised. It goes up $1.24 to $12.67. Okay, so you know this is kind of awkward when this is your number 1 Modern card going up in value. Like I said, some of those Pioneer cards actually are moving because of Modern too, but this isn't really moving for any particular reason. Then probably this copy of the card started to dry up a little bit. It is a great Modern card though. Sees play in Devoted Devastation or Company builds, Bant Stoneblade, Rainbow Nib Mizzet, Eldrazi builds, and a whole lot more. Sees Legacy play too. Great Commander card, but the other copies of the card aren't really moving much this week. Okay, let's move on to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we look at cards that see play in Vintage, Legacy, 93, 94, or cards that are just important to collectors. First, we have Necropotence from Eternal Masters. It goes up $1.36 to $18.28. So, because the market has been a little quieter this week, some of the cards I normally would put in the Commander section, I just put in this section. This is a great Vintage card, also a fantastic Commander card. Most recently, it picked up steam because of those Carrick Son of Yawgmoth builds. Next, we have Tropical Island from Revised. It goes up $1.80 to $2.99.50. This isn't increasing a whole lot, but I did want to point it out because these Revised dual lands continue to grow. Even if they're growing slowly, they do seem to be gaining momentum, something to pay attention to. This is on the reserve list, of course. Lion's Eye Diamond, also on the reserve list. This goes up $3.05 to $205. This has recently seen a little increased Commander play since Emery Lurker of the Lock came out, but really this is all about Legacy. Ad Nauseam Tendrils and Dredge, plus other decks in that format play it. You'll also find this in Vintage in those Dark Petition Storm decks. Next we have Demonic Tutor, but this is the one from Unlimited. It goes up $5.91 to $56.50. I think this is going up more so just because it's from Unlimited than anything. This is a great Vintage card though, and has recently seen increased Commander play, again because of Carrick Son of Yawgmoth. Kind of the same story with Winter Orb. This is the one from Unlimited again. It goes up $10.78 to $89.95. Most likely moving because this card is getting harder and harder to find in good condition. 93, 94 players could be interested in this. This sees Legacy play, but also this card has seen increased Commander play recently with Urza Lord High Artificer. Mahamadi Jinn from Unlimited going up $28 to $109.99. This has been a very hot Unlimited card recently. Wheel of Fortune from Unlimited, another card that's been moving a lot recently, up $62.51 to $312.50. Shows up sometimes in Vintage and Commander. This is on the reserve list, but it has been reprinted and revised, and it also got a reprinting as a Judge promo and foil before they closed that loophole on the reserve list. Time Twister from Unlimited, also on the reserve list, it goes up $1,252.50 to $3,747.49. Wow, okay. The main reason this is moving is the same reason some of these other Power 9 cards tend to jump back and forth. Simply, there's not a lot of copies of them for sale at any given time on the secondary market online, meaning that it's hard to track data accurately, and basically for a long time there's just been a number of damaged copies on the marketplace. Recently, some higher grade copies showed up, and that's what you're seeing happen here with the price. Because there's so little market data, those higher grade copies are jumping the price. Okay, on to our Commander Spotlight. This is a short one, believe it or not, because again, the market's a little quiet this week, and also a lot of the cards we already talked about were moving, at least in part because of Commander. First though, we have Wild Slash going up $1.05 to $3.43. Okay. So this one is probably not really moving as much because of Commander as Pioneer, but I thought this was a good chance to talk about the card for both of the formats. In Commander, players are picking this up to play with Torbrand, Thane of Red Fell. That's been a pretty popular commander the last couple weeks. In Pioneer, though, Is It Phoenix will play this? Burn, Mono Red Aggro, Is It Ensoul Artifact, Atarka Red, Boros Feather, and Goblins. Here's a spot where we can talk about Field of the Dead. It goes up $1.22 to $7.47. This is seeing Pioneer play in Bat Field of the Dead builds, as well as sometimes Azorius control decks. Modern, this will show up at times in Amulet Titan, Titan Shift, Sultai Control, and other decks within the format. And aside from that, it's also a great commander card showing up in Yarok the Desecrated builds, Golas Tireless Pilgrim decks, and some of the new Brawl commanders are liking this card too. I have seen this played in builds with Chilean Teller of Tales as the commander, as well as Corvold, Fey Cursed King. I also think some of the increase has to do with some heavy speculation that this is just a good card to have for the future. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx goes up $1.22 to $19.99, kind of the same story here. This is a card that is great in some commander builds, especially if you're in monocolor, but probably, again, moving because of other things. Pioneer, the green ramp deck, which was extremely hot, was running this. Problem was, though, that deck was a little too good and caught two big bannings, Oath of Nissa as well as Leyline of Abundance. That might slow this card down a little bit, but it does also see play in some other monocolor decks in Pioneer, including Mono Black Vampires. This also sees modern play in Elves and Tooth and Nail. Cruel Tutor from Portal goes up $1.32 to $43.89. Maybe going up because it is a rare from Portal and it is getting harder and harder to find in good condition. But again, tutors are always critical when it comes to building those commander decks, and especially the ones in black recently have had a little extra value attached to them because of Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth. That card has just been super popular in Commander. Okay, on to the Pauper Spotlight, a little shorter again this week. Merchant Scroll from Homelands goes up 14 cents to $4.32. This is in the Inside Out combo deck. Also see some modern play in like Twiddle Storm decks and some vintage play too. Okay, on to the Premium Spotlight. I went with Nexus of Fate. This is the foil buy-a-box promo from Magic 2019. It goes up $6.72 to $22.72. I guess I could have put this one in the Pioneer list considering you can only get it as a foil, but it is going up this week mostly because of Pioneer. I mentioned the Is It Phoenix deck has been doing well in Hardened Scales, but another deck that did well this week in the Pioneer format is Nexus Reclamation. This is a key card in that deck, obviously, and this also sees some light modern play too. And that's going to conclude the Market Watch for this week. As always, hey, thanks for joining me on this journey through the Magic secondary market. Until next time, though, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.